Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one and welcome back to Mingles with Jingles, and it's been one hell of a week. So, just to keep you all up to date, 2 weeks ago I broke the news that I'm sick and tired at the ripe old age of nearly 52 of living in rented housing, and I've taken the plunge and made an offer on a property of my own. Last week I broke the fantastic news that my offer has been accepted, and this week everything's been moving at breakneck pace until I made first contact with a lawyer, which is unfortunately an unavoidable part of the whole process, and everything has come crashing to a halt. Which is apparently, at least according to everybody I've spoken to who's been through this process, that's just the way these things go. So strap yourselves in, this is what happened, and almost certainly the sort of thing that you too can expect to look forward to if you ever find yourself in this situation. So, upon acceptance of my offer on the property, both my mortgage advisor and the estate agent have been moving heaven and earth to lay the groundwork and get things going. And within days of the offer being accepted, the property had been taken off the market, the mortgage had been approved, everything that the estate agent and the mortgage advisor could do had been done. And from that point on, it's in the hands of the lawyers. Yeah, everybody's just waiting for the lawyers. But first I had to hire a lawyer. So there is a specific type of lawyer. Here in the UK they call them conveyancers. They might have a different word for them elsewhere in the world, but they're basically a lawyer who specialises in property. And I'd already received a quote from one of these conveyancers. So upon having my offer accepted, I emailed them and said, yep, absolutely, I'd love to retain your services. They said, that's fantastic. We'll send you a welcome pack with all the paperwork that you need to sign. Everything that you need will be in that. Get that back to us and we'll start our side of the process moving. So I said, fantastic, here's my address, do it. And then I waited. And I waited. And I waited a week. I waited an entire week for this pack to appear in the post. And then eventually it did. So one morning I went downstairs to check the mail, and there's this very official looking, very thick envelope, and I'm thinking, yeah, that must be it. And it was, eventually, after a week. So I took a look at the paperwork, and honestly, all of the information that I needed to include in the paperwork from the lawyer had already been provided to me by the estate agent and the mortgage advisor. They were waiting for this. They knew exactly what sort of questions they were going to ask. So all that information had been provided. And it took me less than an hour to read it all, understand it, and sign everything that needed to be signed. But I also had to provide 2 different proof of identification. And they have a list of what documents are acceptable to them. So, okay, passport, no problem, got that. But this is usually the point where I tend to trip up whenever somebody's asking me for 2 different forms of official identification, because the next one on the list is always a driver's license, and I don't have a driver's license. However, they also were quite prepared to accept things like bank statements. So, yeah, no problem, get some of those printed off. But then I got to the part where they specified that with things like passports and driver's license, copies were not acceptable. They needed to see them in person so that they could make copies of things that they knew were original documents. And okay, fair enough. That sounds entirely reasonable. That meant, of course, I was going to have to physically go down to their office. So I checked their opening times and said, yep, no problem. Went to their website and, yep, sure enough, we're open between this hour and that hour on these days. And that was all it said. Right? It didn't say anything else. So my friend Eddie, because he's a great guy, said, no problem, I'll drive you over there right now. So he picked me up, took me down there, and I got to the door, and there's a big sign on the front saying closed due to COVID. No mention of this on their website, or perhaps there was, and I just wasn't looking in the right place. But, well, okay. So how are you going to take a copy of my passport in person if your office is closed? Well, they had a letterbox, and there was a sign saying anybody dropping off any official documentation, please just post it through the letterbox. So I put all of the paperwork through the letterbox, the forms that they'd sent me, all signed and dated, copies of my bank statements, but there's no way I'm putting my passport through somebody's letterbox, particularly not if it looks like their office has been closed for the last 18 months. So went back home. Eddie took me home. Again, great guy. And jumped onto the PC and fired off an email saying, well, I popped down to your office, as requested, but there was nobody there. The office had a big "we're closed due to COVID" sign on the door. So I'd used my combination printer scanner to get a scan of the relevant pages in my passport and attach that to the email and said, will this do? To their credit, they emailed me back very, very quickly and said, no, that won't do. We need to actually see your passport. So if you could bring it down to our office... Yes, Akazuki, I am aware of how ridiculous this whole thing is. So, equally quickly, I emailed them back, it was still during working hours, and told them, well, did you miss the part in my previous email where I said I've literally just gotten back from your office and unfortunately there's a sign on the door saying, please fuck off due to COVID. They said, oh yeah, that's not a problem. Just phone us when you get there and we'll open the door and let you in. I can't help but feel that this is the kind of information that should have probably been written down somewhere in the welcome pack that they took a week to send me. Apparently they haven't bothered updating it since they've changed their working practices due to COVID, so not a good sign. But anyway, the next day, once again, before going to work, Eddie, because he's a great guy, drove me down to their office, where I phoned them and was put on hold, standing in the rain, outside their front door, for 8 minutes before somebody finally came to the door. Now again, to their credit, it appeared that the only person in the office for probably the last 18 months has been the office administrator. All the actual lawyers are working from home. So she was the only one in the office answering phones and so on and so on and so on. So she got to me as soon as she could, took my passport off me, didn't even ask me in, disappeared for a minute, came back, said, bingo, there you're done. So I thought, fantastic. I have now retained the services of a property conveyancer. Everything was waiting for this. This is where the whole process had stalled. The mortgage lender, the mortgage advisor, the estate agent, everybody had been waiting for me to retain the services of a property conveyancer. Finally, everything can get moving again. So I went home, and I waited, and I waited, and I'm still waiting, and I haven't heard a thing since. And apparently this is all perfectly normal for anybody undergoing this process the second the lawyers get involved. Everybody I've spoken to has said that buying their own house has been the most stressful experience they have ever undertaken. And we're talking about war veterans here. You know, people who have been shot at said that that was nothing compared to the stress that they suffered when purchasing their own property. Although, on the bright side, I've already gotten past one of the potentially most stressful parts of the whole process, because it's not unusual when you're making an offer on a property, you retain the services of like estate agents and mortgage advisors and this and that and the other, and none of that is free. You're paying all of these people to get this property for you, and then somebody else comes in at the last moment with a better offer, and you're right back to square one, and you don't get any of that money back. Fortunately, I'm past that part of the process because the property has now been taken off the market. So I am the one who is going to be buying it. But there's still all kinds of things that can go wrong and sink the project entirely before I sign contracts and get the keys and it's mine and I can move in. The surveyor might find that there are structural problems that need to be addressed, which means renegotiating the price or accepting the problems and paying to get them fixed myself. Or they could discover that the property is being grossly overvalued and it's not actually worth the amount that I've agreed to pay for it, in which case the contract will have to be renegotiated, and that's more delays as the lawyers at both ends argue and so on and so on. And of course, the surveyor doesn't work for free either, so, you know, you have to pay somebody thousands of pounds to potentially find out that the property's going to cost you more. So, fantastic. Same deal with the electrical certification, which will need to be done to ensure that I'm moving into a place that actually has good wiring. And again, the electrician doesn't work for free. At any point during this process, after paying these people thousands and thousands of pounds to check that I'm not being sold a lemon here, the whole thing could go south. And it doesn't end there. I mean, even assuming that everything goes well, and it's never all going to go well, there's going to be something wrong and it's going to be something expensive. But even assuming everything does go well and the contracts get signed and I get the keys and I'm ready to move in, I still have to furnish the place. Furniture isn't free either. And I spent the whole day today, before sitting down to record this episode of Mingles with Jingles, looking at furniture. And the reason I was doing this today is because, well, I don't know what things are like where you live. I suspect it's probably the same. But here in the UK, a lot of places have their big annual sales in January because they've got all of that stock that they bought to sell at Christmas that didn't get sold and they need to get rid of it. So, for a lot of places today, obviously Sunday, since that's when I'm recording this Mingles with Jingles, but you're probably listening to it on Monday. So Sunday, for a lot of places, was the last day of their Christmas and winter sales. So, here's the problem. Not only do I not yet actually know 100% for sure whether or not I'm actually going to get this property, but even if I am, I have no idea when I'm going to move in. And it's probably going to be at least 2 months from now, minimum, because, things tend to slow down once lawyers get involved. So, here's my situation. I can save a lot of money by buying furniture today, but I don't have anywhere for it to be delivered to. So my choices were spend a whole bunch of money on furniture for the new house without knowing 100% for sure that I'm actually going to get this new house. I mean, I'm 99% sure, but 99% isn't the same as 100%. And also not knowing when I'm actually going to be able to move in, but save a ton of money on the Christmas sales, or wait until the contracts have been signed and I actually have a moving in date, and then move into a place that has no furniture and spend a whole lot more money on furniture to be delivered at some point in the future. Now, option 2 wouldn't have been terrible, because let's face it, all I really need is a desk with a computer on it, an internet connection, a kitchen, and a bed. And I've got that. So it'll be a bit basic at first, but it'll be entirely manageable. I mean, I've certainly lived in worse accommodation. However, I got really lucky because one of the places I was looking at furniture offered what they call flexible delivery. So I can buy it all today, save £740 on the price of a dining table, 4 chairs, a TV stand, 2 bookshelves, a coffee table, and I have no idea what you call this thing. It goes in the hallway right next to your entrance door, and they've got coat hooks on it and a bench that you can sit on to take your shoes off, and underneath the bench there are racks for shoes. You know the sort of thing? No idea what you call it, but one of those. And because I bought them on the last day of the Christmas sale, I saved £740. Basically, all the chairs came half price if I bought them with a dining table. And I can arrange for them to be delivered anything up to 18 weeks from the date of purchase. So I've arranged for everything to be delivered on the 25th of May. And if it all goes ahead, I will be in the property before the 25th of May. But because it's a flexible delivery option, if, for example, I get the contract signed and I get the keys and it's my property and I'm ready to move in by, say, for example, the 10th of March, I can just phone them up and say, please deliver on the 10th of March. And not only will they deliver on the new date, I can change the date as many times as I like to suit my circumstances. They will also assemble everything and then take away all of the packing materials. Now, obviously, I have to pay a bit more to have this kind of delivery option, but I can remember the last time I tried to assemble furniture myself. It was several years ago. I thought, we'll go to IKEA and get a computer desk and some shelf units and stuff for the man cave to display models and statuettes and stuff on. And, IKEA isn't bad. Actually, IKEA is very good. I mean, they've got some beautiful stuff, and the prices aren't completely outrageous. The only problem is it looks fantastic in the showroom. And then once you've paid for it and it all gets delivered, it comes in these flat boxes. And I'm thinking, it's not what it looked like when I was in the showroom. And oh, Lord. There are 2 types of men in this world. Men who are good with tools and me. Don't get me wrong. If you want somebody to bullshit for half an hour or tell a story, I'm the man from the job. From the job? For the job. But when it comes to assembling furniture, cat trees are about the limit of my expertise. I did a pretty good job on the computer desk. I got that mostly right. But it took me a week to assemble all the shelf units. And I got some of that wrong with the chipboard showing where it shouldn't have been, and the veneer out of line of sight. It's not my strong point. So the fact that I can actually pay people, not just to deliver it, but to put it all together and then take the rubbish away afterwards, fantastic. The thing is, though, having a flexible delivery date only really covers part of the problem. It means that I can have this stuff delivered on the day that I'm ready to move in, and it'll be fantastic, and it'll all be taken care of for me, including the tidying up afterwards. But what if the whole house purchase thing fails? I mean, it almost certainly won't, but almost certainly isn't the same as certainly, so, there's still a very small chance that everything could go wrong, and I'll be left with £3,000 worth of furniture and nowhere to put it. So I'm sitting there, I'm on their website, I've picked all of this furniture. On the last day of the sale, I'm saving £740 if I buy it all today. But what's their cancellation and returns policy looking like? And thankfully, if the worst does come to the worst, any time up to 3 days before all of this stuff is due to be delivered, I can cancel and get a full refund. So, yeah, that's a no-brainer. I went ahead and did it. I'm substantially worse off than I was before. You don't get a lot of change out of £3,000 for furniture these days. Not if you want decent furniture. But I saved £740 on the deal, and I can get the money back if everything goes horribly, horribly wrong. So that's nice, because I've already spent an awful lot of money in this process that I can't get back if everything goes horribly, horribly wrong. So, yeah. I think I lucked out there. Because, I mean, I've lived in rented accommodation my whole life. And when you live in rented accommodation, when it's not your own place, you need to furnish it. You need shelves and tables and desks and all that kind of stuff. But you don't really want to spend a lot of money on it, because at the end of the day, it's all temporary. It has to be good enough to get the job done, but no better than that. And this is going to be my own place. And so I don't necessarily want to furnish it with really expensive stuff, because I can't afford to furnish it with really expensive stuff. But I do want to furnish it with good stuff, because hopefully, it's going to last me the rest of my life. And I really do want it, at least the lounge and kitchen, to look as if an adult lives there. So I want stuff that I'm not going to be embarrassed to call my own. It's going to be worth it. That's just what I keep telling myself. It's incredibly stressful, but at the end of the day, it's going to be worth it. It is going to be worth it, isn't it? Any other homeowners out there? Please tell me it's going to be worth it. Yeah, it's going to be worth it. I'm sure it is. More space for the cats to run around in, for one thing. And of course, that's the other thing. If you've got your own place, you don't have to ask anybody else's permission to drill holes in the walls and mount perches and walkways and little roosts and nests and stuff for your cats, or anything like that. If there's something that you want to do, you just do it. You don't need anybody's permission. Of course, the flip side to that is that if something goes wrong, like there's an electrical short and you lose power to the kitchen, or anything like that, there's no landlord for you to call to pay to fix it for you. It's all coming out of your own pocket. I'm sure it'll be fine. And I have been looking at cat furniture as well. I want to dedicate one entire wall to the cats. I've seen like hexagonal boxes and stuff with little entrances and exits that you can put up in a pattern to give the cats somewhere to, get away from it all. Because that's the thing. If you've got cats, and any cat owners out there will agree, you can either put cat furniture up or have the cats climb over all the rest of your furniture anyway, because they're going to do it whether you provide stuff for them or not. Oh, and that's another thing. Cat owners. Because while I was looking at furniture, I was looking at things like sofas, and holy shit, those things are expensive. And I saw all kinds of things that I really liked and weren't eye-wateringly expensive, but they were leather or leatherette. And you can't have that if you've got cats, because they will claw the shit out of it. So you have to get fabric furniture. And it has to be the kind of fabric that, because they're going to sink their claws into it, whether you want it or not. So it has to be the kind of furniture that can take that, which severely restricts your options. It's going to be worth it. Come on, everybody say it with me. Don't worry, Jingles. It's going to be worth it. I'm sure it will. Anyway, it's been a long and very exciting day. And And that's really all I have time for. I did want to spend some time talking about the ridiculous news that World of Warships has just posted on the developers blog. That's right, super carriers are coming at tier 10 with jet aircraft. But I guess we're going to have to wait and see how that develops and probably talk about it next week. In the meantime, I hope you've all had a great weekend. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.